better get the message and get it straight.
You're gonna need some bridge work. It's simple as that.
Because we're living in judgment. We're living in implementation. All right, peace and blessings, assalamu alaikum, shalom. Welcome to the Doc and the Radical program. And today, Doc, I want to talk about overcoming odds. I was looking at YouTube earlier this morning, and I came across a story that was on Water Sniper's channel about a young sister named Angel Pittman. Have you heard anything about her? No? Okay. So just real quick, she's a young sister, entrepreneur who bought some land. Well, let me just go straight to the story. Let me share screen. And we can go look at it. So here's a picture of her, Angel Pittman. And that's one of the school trucks that she bought. Now let's go and expand this so we can. Okay, so it doesn't look like I can expand it. So I'll just read it from my phone. This article started out, I cried for a long time, Angel Pittman told reporters. For somebody to be hateful because of my skin color makes it even worse. It's really heartbreaking. Angel Pittman had a simple idea. She purchased a single patch of land in Salisbury, North Carolina for $10,000, 3 school buses for $14,000, and planned to create a mobile hair salon. Her plan was to live out of one of the buses and use the other 2 to travel around the community providing her services. According to The Guardian, Pittman ran into an immediate problem, an elderly white neighbor who objected to a Black woman setting up a business across the street. He quickly made her a lifetime nightmare. About a week after closing on September 23rd, she returned with her mom to drop off the buses. This time, she said, the man approached them and asked, why are you guys here? Are y'all looking for shade? He sat over there and had his gun out the whole time. She said he was like, get the fuck off my lawn. And that we need to get them fucking buses off his lawn. So basically saying my land was his land. He then began displaying swastikas and pro-KKK signs in his yard, which prompted Pittman to call the local police, who dismissed her complaints on the grounds that her neighbor had put up racist signs in the past. Sheriff Captain Mark McDaniel defended his response, claiming there was no evidence the neighbor committed a hate crime. As for Pittman, she has fled back home to Charlotte, where she was raising funds to try to cover her losses and restart her business on a patch of land in that area. And this came out of the rawstory.com. And there you have Miss Pittman and one of the buses that she purchased. So she spent about $24,000, 10,000 on the land, 14,000 on the two buses. She was going to use one to work out of and the other to live out of. What do you think about this, Doc?
As I listen to it, and once again, I'm from the Midwest, and so I've been accused often of having a bias against the South. And as I listen to you talk about this, I was reminded of this. I think it was an HBO special. It was titled "Banging in Little Rock," where gang banging had made it all the way from South Central LA and was now in Little Rock, and they were Crips and Bloods and Folk and whatever else. When I hear stories like this, I wonder, where are our, as they put it, our hitters at? Where are those that will ride into the heart of Black America and indiscriminately shoot down people for no apparent reason, just because they happen to be there? Where's that toughness at, that violence at, when it could be utilized for a righteous cause? I believe it was Malcolm who questioned, Black Vietnam veterans, and he said, it's as violent as you was in Vietnam, and you come back here and you meek and mild like a lamb. There has to be a message sent by, and I won't even say Black America, although I believe that it would probably come from Black America. I believe that from good folk on the face of the planet Earth, there should be a message that is being sent. And there should be an understanding that, quite simply, your silence is in many ways making you complicit. Okay. And once again, just like Brother Malcolm had that moment, what I want to say was going up to Boston University, and the white girl comes up and says to him, I'm a good white person, and I want to help your people. What can I do? And Malcolm looks at her and he tersely says, nothing. Well, he regretted that moment, and he says that what good white folk need to do, if we can use that term, is return to their community and regulate their community in much the same way that they point at us and tell us to regulate our community, to clean up ourselves and to clean up our community. They know him. They know what he's about. And yet they do nothing. And so with them dropping the ball in doing something, with the police dropping the ball with doing something, where are hitters at? Where they at? Where's Slim Thug them at? Where's YSL at? Why, they're so violent within Black America. But when you have someone who's blatantly like this, you meek and mild as a mouse. That's what I think about that. I tip my hat to the sister for being entrepreneurial, and having an entrepreneurial spirit is something that is God-given. Everybody ain't got it. I just cringe inside that no one came to stand in the gap for her. And I'm talking about stand in the gap prior to this even going national. Because this could have been handled very easily and very simply. Okay. And there needs to be a moment where Black men stand up for Black women. And these Black women who exhibit masculine tendencies and traits like men, they need to stand up as well. If you want to be a man, you want to act like you're a man, well, step up right here. So I'm saddened by that. I'm saddened by the fact that we did nothing to aid someone who was trying to do something very positive within the community. And it really reduces down to the idea of, is it even possible for her to overcome these odds? without the assistance or help of our community? And a better question may very well be, should she have to overcome these odds without the
Mhm.
assistance of our community? And I think we all know the answer to that.
Exactly. And Doc, do you believe like, because I did a video on this morning. I did a morning message on it.
Mhm.
And I looked at it from the perspective that in America, or period anywhere, but basically in America, whenever you decide to do something, there's always going to, especially something of good, there's always going to be some type of opposition to thwart you on your way up,
Mhm.
on your way of doing what it is that you do.
Mhm.
Do you believe that, regardless of gender, that you have to have enough will, determination to bust through that which stands in your way in order to accomplish said your goals? Or do you, as our sister did in this case, and I'm not saying that she's wrong, but I'm just saying there's something else could have been done. Do you persevere and say, you're not going to stop me from doing what I need to do? This is my land, this is my property, and I will defend it if need be.
You know,
What's your
you know, I don't know what's going on with me today. I'm kind of hearing or thinking your words are taking me back to different things. And what you just said reminded me, and my answer, this is my answer. It reminds me of KRS-One Boogie Down Productions album, Edutainment, where he has these snippets that he plays of Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael. And this one snippet of Kwame Ture has him saying, you know, revolution and change is always made by the masses. He said, if you doubt what I say, consider George Washington, put him in the middle of Valley Forge, surrounded by the British, and he can do nothing. Put Malcolm surrounded by racists and bigots by himself, without any of his Nation of Islam and no FOI around him. He'll be slaughtered and killed. But you take, and he talks about King as well. He says, but you take Washington, you take King, you take Malcolm, and you surround them with like-minded people, then they can change the world. I think that there's a pervasive fallacy that occurs with people when they're talking about the idea of success. It's kind of like, and I'll get back to what I was saying, it's kind of like having a recipe, someone giving you a recipe, a family recipe or whatever, and they didn't really want you to have it, and they took one ingredient out of it. And you know that yours ain't like theirs. It has been changed. I believe that revolutionary thought, I believe that being progressive is very similar to that. So when we perpetrate these ideas of all it's going to take is willpower and determination for you to make it through, that doesn't even work on a weight loss diet. You are going to fail. What you need is hard work, you need determination, but you also need some breaks. Many people would call it luck. You're going to need some breaks. And that's why it's so important that you fight these people at every level. You fight them in the streets. And as we just saw right here, we got a bunch of cowards who ain't even willing to fight them in the streets. You fight them at the ballot box. You fight them at the school board meetings. You fight them, and you develop a cohesive unit of people who are fighting for the liberation and salvation of the Black nation. Actually doing something, not just talking about something, doing something that falls within their skill set. Everybody's not a lecturer. Everybody's not an intellectual. Everybody's not a warrior, a hitter, so to speak. However, whatever your skill set is, whatever you are comfortable with, you need to be utilizing it not only to help Black America, but also to move this world from what I would argue is the precipice of hell. So that determination thing, I believe that that's a fallacy, because you can be determined all you want to. And if you don't get a break, if there isn't someone who could say yes, that says yes to purchasing your product, to ushering you through to get permits, things like that, who'll pick up the phone for you, you might be stuck out. And we know people who have worked hard and diligently, and that's where, and they get nowhere. That's where that saying of work harder, not smarter comes from. So I don't see hard work as being sufficient to make it through. Because if hard work were sufficient to make it through, Black folk would run not only this nation, they would run the world and probably 3 or 4 other galaxies that we ain't even discovered yet, because nobody has worked as hard as Black folk have in this nation. And yet we have received very little payment for that labor.
What do you think about? Because when I agree, you need more things, but you have to have a strong will, because your will makes sure that you're fortified, that you're not going to fall back.
Without a strong will, you that's a prerequisite to being positioned for success.
Mhm.
You gotta have a strong will. You gotta have determination. That's standard. Without that, you ain't even in the ball game.
And so with that being said, because my and we got other cases that we're going to look at too.
Mhm.
I'm seeing from my vantage point, I'm seeing that there's a lack of will. There's a lack of that determination, because when you meet opposition, and even though her opposition that she met was a racist cracker across the street,
Mhm.
and that she went out and spent this $24,000 believing in herself, believing in what she wanted to do, and was motivated. But then when she met that opposition, then she met a force that she didn't believe she could overcome, so she retreated. And in these other stories we're going to talk about, they share that similar line of retreat when they meet that opposition. And that's the same opposition that our ancestors met.
Yeah, but wait a minute, hold on. Let's be fair to the sister. She did what was logical for her to do. That if this is a lawful society, she called what should have been the proper authorities. I don't necessarily see that as a retreat. I see that as self-preservation. Because if they know what he does, they're aware of it, and they've allowed it, there's a part that a reasonable person would say, well, you just like them. And if he comes over here and blows my brains out, he won't spend a day in jail. There's a reason for that. Okay. That's why I say that it's going to be, we often talk about it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it's going to take a village for Black folk to be able to navigate certain things. And this is yet another example of that. Why isn't there somebody that said, hold on, baby girl, we're going to take care of that. Give us 3 days. You come back in 3 days and your obstacle has been removed. Don't nobody know who did it or how they did it, but it has been removed. One of the problems that I see within our community is that we're the only ones who are willing to play above the board. We're the ones that are doing it the quote unquote right way. Whereas the rest of the world seemingly operates from the old Al Davis Oakland Raiders mantra, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And they're cheating in the boardroom, they're cheating at the ballot box, they're cheating at the bank. Because you have to remember, regardless of how industrious Black folk were, if you can't get a reasonable loan, you're kind of stuck in the water. And this is why the idea of fighting them at every turn. We need to have a collectivist mindset led by socially responsible individualism. When you make it through, you understand that you're not a unicorn. You made it through because of us. As the African told Richard Pryor on that dirt road, he asked him, "Who are you?" Richard Pryor said, "I was ashamed. I couldn't tell him who I was." And he said, the African looked me in the eye and he said, "I am we." And that's an instrumental teaching that we have to have. But one of the problems with having that instrumental teaching is that it is in many ways being blocked, silenced, muted by the different cultural messages, the intellectual diet that so many people are involved in consuming. You know, they're literally gorging on social media, reality TV. And unfortunately, many of our people don't understand that story, that's a storyline. And they go out and they try to replicate it in their own lives. And it's hard to be like this young lady is. Okay, and I'm taking a lot of liberties in regards to talking about her, but to be an entrepreneur, and yet you got to deal with people who are busy trying to figure out what Cardi B is doing. And when we're talking about overcoming odds, one of the things that we don't talk about is that from no degree all the way up through PhD, I've seen Black folk who have allowed themselves, have willfully attempted to replicate and pattern themselves after some of the most illiterate, unintelligent individuals, all because they have fame hanging around their neck. And we got to do better. We have to educate our own. And we have to control the intellectual diet that our people are consuming. Because until we do that, you can't even get with any certainty, any regularity. You know, Kevin Samuels talked about the idea of Black women wanting to smile at Black men. Hell, you got brothers who will not acknowledge other brothers for whatever reason. And one has to wonder, where does generation after generation does that self-hatred come from? Because you didn't enter into this world with it. And the idea that all you need to be successful is hard work and commitment and diligence. It's a very flawed argument, because what it ultimately does is it leads people to believing that the reason generations of individuals before them, let alone their peers, are not succeeding is because they didn't work hard enough. And by doing it that way, you are in many ways a pawn on a larger chessboard who's refusing to understand the larger and deeper and in-depth game. You're going to do it all on your own through hard work and diligence and commitment. No, it's not going to work.
You know, this thing, my youngest daughter, Freedom, last year, she goes to a mixed school, and was it last year, or I think it was the year before last? And she goes to a mixed school, and she got into a fight with a white boy. She in the lunchroom, she's at her table, He's a few tables away, and he was sending messages to her, and disrespectful messages. And Freedom didn't like it, so she gets up, she walks right over there to him, and she says to him, "You got something you want to tell me? I'm right here. Tell it to me right now." And he goes to open his mouth to, say what the negative thing was. And she whooped his ass right there in the lunchroom. He was sitting down, she was standing up, and he said what he said, and boom, 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 drug him out from the damn table and whooped on him. Now, of course, once they break it up, she gets suspended for fighting. And her mom saw it one way, I saw it a different way.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it as, one, she was establishing her truth, right? You got the enemy saying these negative things against you and what he gonna do and all this foolishness. And she goes over there to say, okay, go ahead and say it in my face. He goes to say it, and then she handled business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, at some point, the foolishness has to stop. They're living off of past victories, and we're in a new day now. This nigga, that, that's not gonna fly. And so they have to understand that there's a price to be paid. And we gotta understand that we gotta enforce that price, or they'll never back up off of us. Now, this cracker that lived across the street from her, he's feeling really good. I stopped that black bastard from coming over here doing this and he yada, yada, yada. And they sitting around looking for the next victim to victimize, because nobody put a stop to it. And so my thing is, and again, I'm not saying she's wrong. I understand her position. But I am saying that we got to defeat them when they bring that foolishness. Then they ought to get what they're looking for. So they'll understand that if you come this way, we're not going to run around and cry and run off. We're going to establish our truth right here and make you back up off of us, or you won't be walking on this earth no more.
Really what we're talking about is the concept of power. And we often talk about the idea of Black power, but there is a long-standing tradition within this nation of white power. And when I consider power, I think about it being the ability to make something behave and act in a way that is not in its best interest. Okay, when you look at a offensive tackle, guard, anyone on the offensive line in football, they're going forward and they're trying to move their defensive tackle, their defensive end out of the way. That's power. One is going to win and one is going to lose on every single play. This reminds me of Frederick Douglass, the foremost abolitionist to ever live. Douglas, Turner, Vesey, Prosser. Douglas says this. He says, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. And you've got to meet that power with more dogged determination than they could ever imagine you possessed. And so that's my thing with, give us 3 days and you come back on around here and your problem will be solved. It's kind of the exact same relationship that when we're talking about the abduction and murder of Mickey Schwerner, James Chaney, and Andrew Goodman, the 3 civil rights workers who disappeared in Philadelphia, Mississippi, which is ironically the hometown of Brett Favre. It is. That's where he's from. He's from Philadelphia, Mississippi. However, the white power structure of Mississippi did not want those civil rights workers, Black, Jewish, and white, coming down to Mississippi and challenging their authority. So they did something definitive to address it. One of my biggest problems is quite simply the bantering about in the use, and I've never heard it used on white activists who are working on behalf of their people, but I hear Black folk use it all the time to distance themselves from brothers who could be considered Black freedom fighters, could just be considered outspoken. The term is radical. Oh, he's a radical. He's radical. He's a woody woo woo woo. He's a radical. That's their way of distancing themselves. And in many ways, I've always viewed it as trying to send up a smoke signal to white folk. I ain't with him. So when you come to put it on him, and you will come to put it on him, don't put it on me as well. And never taking it from the perspective of, brother, me and you together, we can do something. Okay, they coming. And we gonna fight together. We exhibit we have amongst us what could be best termed a cowardly streak. And that cowardly streak is often tied to not just physicality, but the economic consequences that will come from standing strong. And once they see it done to someone, they'll say, oh, well, hey, they got him. They got him. Versus you standing strong with that brother. And this is probably one of the more troubling things to me that I've seen repeatedly amongst our people, that we're willing to do each other down to get out of the way of white power.
Exactly. And the other story I was telling you about or alluding to, it was this elected official in Virginia, female, ran for state senate. She won. She won state senate. But during her campaign, she was getting death threats. They were calling her family house. Husband is there. He answering the phone too. Yeah, nigga, we're going to get you. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. You better not accept the seat. You better not do this. That. They make it through the campaign. They win. Then she quits. She quits. And she gives the speech and, she says, my husband and I, we talked about it. It's just too much to put our family through, even though we wanted the best for those whom we represent. And so I'm going to quit because I don't want to deal, and I don't want my family to have to deal with that. Now, this is a power position that she was elected to. And because of the threats from the cracker, after she wins, she folds. This is another sign to me that we're unprepared to deal with the realities that come with living in a racial America. I read it no matter what was it? Michael Irvin and his statements. I can't believe it's America. This is like I'm being lynched.
Where you been living at, bro?
Exactly. So it's like, what are you saying? What's going on?
Where you from, heaven?
So it's like she was an educated one, she wasn't as rich as some of the others, but she was educated. So we can't say that she didn't know what our people went through, what our people were going through.
Yeah, but let's you know, I'm always looking for fairness in
Mhm.
regards to this. Many people will look at our educated class and will say, well, if anybody gonna stand up, y'all gonna stand up.
Mm-hmm.
One of my colleagues, William Foster, smartest brother that I've ever met by far. Okay. He says this. He says, you know, being a black activist, especially being a black writer, he's a writer like I am, is the loneliest position in Black America.
Mm.
Okay. Now I say that to emphasize that those who are not in that executive suite cannot begin to really process, number one, how alone and how lonely you are and how exposed you are. And it's a awesome feeling to understand that there is nobody even possessing the ability, let alone the ability and the will to come to your aid when you're in distress. You're being looked at as, well, you're the one with the PhD. You the one, you ought to be able to handle it. If people only knew how alone, especially when you're talking about HBCU campuses are changing. They're becoming more diverse at the professorial ranks, but at PWIs, they're not. And it's not uncommon to have an entire department at major institutions where there's only one brother, one sister, okay? Because they only hiring one. And so that loneliness, that vulnerability is something that you have to feel it because nobody can tell you about it. And that's what the quote unquote elite, well educated class has to deal with. They're always on edge. And for those who are aspiring to that posture, that position, that socioeconomic class, they understand that until they actually make it into the realm of being rich, and
Mhm.
I question if there are any wealthy black people in the world. So I use the word rich. Until they reach being rich, they better shut up because only the rich in Black America are able to talk shit independently. Everybody else can be reined in very easily by kicking out. They ain't even got to kick out all four legs of your economic table. They can kick out one of them and you're shaky. They kick out two, you really shaky. Three, it ain't gonna stand. So that's in many ways what we're looking at. And we talked last week about the brother Lamar Jackson. Yeah, he's they showing him without saying anything about what the rules are, and there are always rules, and it's very difficult for the strident minded, the courageous to buck those rules and survive. I mean, look at my fellow Buckeye brethren. One of the toughest running backs to ever make it through. He was like Archie Griffin when he was at Ohio State. Keith Byers, Tim Spencer, Eddie George. I'm talking about Maurice Claret.
Mm.
Claret challenged that NFL draft rule, and he lost. And his life was in many ways so marginalized that I hate to say that somebody's life was ruined, but he was never the same psychologically. They broke him.
Mm. So, Doc, do you think that um, as a people, I'm quite sure we are individually, those of us that are. But as a people, do you believe we are fit to meet the challenges of the day that come in from racism that will make a sister give up what she just spent money on, make a elected official quit her post once she get elected?
If we
Are
were
we-
if we were equipped or fit to do that, these things wouldn't be occurring. I mean, you have to really think about the reality that this ain't the first time where duly elected black officials have been unasked out of their seats. This happened during the era that we know as Southern Reconstruction, where black elected officials, duly elected by the electorate, were not seated. Were told, you better get your biscuit batter and get up out of here if you know what's good for you. And there was no response from Black America. We don't have the means of having a response. And because you don't have the means of having a response, let's call this community what it is. We're beggars.
Mm,
And we beg and we petition, hoping white folk are having a good day, hoping that the powers that be are having a good day, that their morality, their moral compass has spiked. Because you don't have anything that you can say to them that if you don't do what we need you to do, we're going to do ta da 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 da. You're not organized enough for that. The best of you are actually working for that company that you're trying to boycott. The ones that would have probably been a great asset to get you organized and to execute these plans. You don't have that. And when you have an organization like, let's just use Black Lives Matter, all it takes is a serious, not even a serious, a mild negative media coverage, and black folk fall back. Because we believe, we're almost like that old commercial where the guy says, the girl says, if it wasn't true, they couldn't put it on the internet. That's how we consume and make our political moves. You know, it's a crying shame. Let's be honest now. It's a crying shame that Black America, the most notable Black folk, you know, are not the most educated. Okay, I mean, come on. Let's be honest about this. The most educated are not the most known. I would challenge anyone to name me their who their Congress people are and what congressional district in your state do they represent
mm,
versus who are the players on whatever NBA basketball team or NFL team represent your city or your state. The black folk who could name Deshaun Watson as the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, but can't tell you who the senators from the state of Ohio are.
mm-hmm.
And that's really what one of the things for me, that there is a juvenile nature. There is a unwillingness to grow up that we find within so many within our community. Not all, but many within our community.
Wow. And do you believe, or do you think, because you mentioned Black Lives Matter, and that was the segue right into where I wanted to go next, because there's a lot of these organizations that are quote unquote set up to stop this racism that's running rampant, to stop the attacks and the bleeding that Black people have been bleeding since we've gotten here. Do you believe
but they relying upon grant money?
Exactly. Do you believe that they are set up to do what they claim they're to do. What do you think about that? Those type of organizations?
And you could set up an organization and have the intentions of doing, of putting a cow on the moon. The question becomes, the better question is quite simply, is it even possible for you to go ahead and work within the system to change the system in a appreciable manner? Systems by and large, they stabilize themselves after a time. If you bring some change in, look at the American economy. If you have a dip, when the bank, Silicon Valley Bank, went belly up a little while ago, and we saw the consequences in the stock market. Well, you see a part of the system come in to shore that up, to balance it out. I believe, because I can't speak in general for all organizations. I've met some of these people, and some of them I believe are sincere and well-meaning, but I believe that, as with anything else, absolute power corrupts absolutely. The money that is being brought in, the learning how the system works. And I believe that for many people, there comes a crucial moment where they realize that we ain't solving this. We're not going to be able to solve racism, what have you. And they could very well decide that they're going to become very individualistic, very, it becomes a career for them. And Lord knows we've seen so many people who maybe they did start off well-meaning, but before long, and I want to use a term that a sister used during a discussion that we were having. She referred to them as poverty pimps. And I believe that there's a class of individuals who are actually poverty pimps. And so they may have started well-meaning. Who am I to say that they didn't? But at the exact same time, I know the results, and I've seen the NAACP kind of move itself to irrelevancy. I've seen Ben Crump rise, and I see Al Sharpton still, orbiting everything that he can orbit. So I just personally don't see that as being. I think they have a role, but I don't think it's a primary role when you begin to talk about the upliftment of Black America.
Doc, do you believe in this anti-racism, I guess, training that they got out now, and it's supposed to make white people anti-racist?
You for real?
Yes, I'm for real.
It ain't gonna work, people. It ain't gonna work. Okay, racism is woven into the fabric of this nation. Number one, people are operating in many ways from a perspective that is not really grounded in anything. There is no biological basis for race. So we're talking about something different. What we're really talking about is groups of individuals who share the same phenotype, the same skin tone, skin color, banding together because they don't have, Mark Twain said quite simply, that geography is reality. The reality is that these people are not even geographically connected. But in this land, they're known as white. And I've yet to meet, and I know some very good white folk. A couple of them I call friends. However, I don't believe that those good white folk would ever give up their economic sufficiency, give up a scholarship that their child has earned or received for the sake of racial integration. They can't afford to do it. We live in a capitalist nation. And to be fair to them, no. So the idea of anti-racism, I get it, and a shout out to the Ukombosi group of individuals who are doing anti-racism work that I was actually training with for a while. But no, I don't see it really, because really what you're talking about is a pervasive need for redistribution of wealth. Working class poor, and I would argue even middle class white folk, they catching hell as well. And if progress is measured by economic success, socioeconomic status, political power, you don't even want to be a middle class white man in this society, because it's only the elite who are really living a very beneficial life.
So, Doc, do you believe that, or no, better yet, you talked earlier, you mentioned when Malcolm X met the white girl, and she asked for help and he was like, no. What do you think his answer should have been?
You got plenty of work to do amongst your own people. If you're truly interested in aiding Black folk, you have plenty of work to do within your own community. Hell, step one could be going over there and killing that dude that ran that sister off her land and away from her boat, from her buses. Mm-hmm. You got plenty of work to do in your own house. One of the most offensive postures that one could ever come across is quite simply the idea of the great white savior, that it takes white folk to come over here and straighten this thing out. That is the height of ridiculousness, that they can come within Black America and show Black folk how to make it in America. And as the great, brilliant educator Jane Elliott put it, said, you black folk know how to get ahead in America. Act white. Regardless of how white acting you are, you're never going to be white. And we need to have a very serious conversation within this nation where we're not just talking about race, we're also talking about the idea of class, because we like to make white folk a monolithic group. When I have my students think about the institution of American chattel slavery, have them close their eyes and to envision a slave owner, what they come up with is some of the most ridiculous stuff that one could ever imagine. They're thinking about grand plantations with 2,000-3,000 stolen Africans on it. And they're shocked to learn that the average slave owner, when they did the data, he had 2 slaves, 2 enslaved Africans, and they lived in the house with him. He was aspiring to be Jeff Bezos, to be Bill Gates and what have you, but he hadn't arrived yet. But it's going to take white America to stop shooting themselves in the head and thinking that their salvation is found with white elitists like Donald Trump, and return back home to the idea of unions, American unionism. Failure to do that they're going to continue to lose, because they don't understand where the real power is, and the real power is in an alliance with those who are of the same socioeconomic class as you are, not a hatred of those people who are your natural allies. Now, yo, brother.
And so, Doc, with this anti-racism quote unquote movement that's going on, that's being perpetrated, and I, like you, I agree 1,000% with you. Do you think, because even when you look at what they talk about doing, they're not talking about doing anything that changes the seat of power. There's They're not saying, okay, well, look, let's run for office and knock these people out and put this thing in and let's do this and let's. They're not talking about that stuff. They're talking about working in the Black community, going and adopting a poor school, these type of things that don't result in no real change. It's like you want a badge to say I walk with Black people, I protest with Black people, but there's nothing of substance that you do to change the realities that we go through.
Well, let's be fair. What could they do of substance to change anything?
Well, they can start voting differently. That's the first step that I would think. If you really want to change, you can start voting differently.
I remember Minister Farrakhan's great statement when he was talking about Black folk voting. He says, if you're Black and voting in America, it's like choosing between Satan, Lucifer, and the devil. And I think that there's something to be said about that. That even within whites, we often talk about how Black America has been kind of held hostage by default by the Democratic Party. A gravitation that began in 1934 during the first off-year election of FDR, and Black folk fully moved the Democratic Party, including the one of the last holdouts, Daddy King, Martin's dad. He doesn't vote Democratic for the Democratic Party until 1960, when JFK battled against Richard Nixon. But I don't see, how can I put this? I don't see them willing to really vote in their own interest. I think that the best you could hope for is for them to be centrist, because they have a flawed understanding of race. They have latent subconscious racial fears, because you have to remember that your old president, Donald Trump, he was known to go in front of a camera at a rally and say, I heard there's a caravan on its way from Guatemala. And these people would go crazy. Like tomorrow at the HR office, they was going to get a notification from the HR office. Don't come in no more. We got Guatemalans here now. So it's race baiting. It's an exploitable loophole, a wide loophole that they use for poorly educated, afraid whites. So they could vote differently, but who they gonna vote for?
And I'm thinking send your own candidates, because that's the only way you're going to do the damage that needs to be done. You have to send your own. And they should understand this, they should know this, but they never talk about those type of issues. They want it was this, and I lost the page that I wanted to bring up and talk about of that organization and down there in Florida. That's an anti-racist organization. But they got a list of books. They don't give to white people. They give these lists of books to Black children. And I'm reading the titles of these books, and I'm like, what? They're this, we all get along to go along books. I would have thought that if you give them the Black, maybe if you giving them some books about who they really are and their history and where they come from. No, it's, Billy and John want to be friends. We can all play together in the sand pot and all this.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is that there is a obvious desire from such groups to even leftist groups to go ahead and start now without doing any reparations, any repair for the previous injury that's occurred to Black folk. So yeah, that's a very convenient way of saying, okay. I know that you haven't been able to work for the past 80 years and receive decent pay, but that's water under the bridge. Let's start today. Well, they start with a king's ransom, and you're starting not even at zero. You're starting at a deficit, not only economically, socially, politically, educationally, health wise, and the idea that the past doesn't matter, the past doesn't impact what's going on in the present and will definitely impact the future, is a con game. So if we're gonna do it that way, let's just be honest and say we're gonna con. You know? And let's just hold hands and let's sing together and let's get along. In the privileged position, because let's be very clear about this. And I'm not talking about all white folk. I'm talking about those who are wealthy. And you know, Denzel Washington said it this way. He said, you know what I get my family for Christmas every year? He said, we wake up and we decide where we want to go that day. And we get on my private jet and we go. Money gives you options. Okay. And I don't care if you Tupac Amaru Shakur said this in his song Changes, which is if I had to pick my favorite Tupac song, it would be Changes. He says, you gotta remember that both black and white are smoking crack tonight. You know, there's a universality in human suffering. And unfortunately, the common thread for the majority of that suffering is going to be poverty, being economically marginalized. We often talk about brothers getting longer prison sentences than white folk, which I believe to be true, but I would like to see a study based upon the prison sentences that poor white boys get versus their more elite and well-funded white brethren.
Wow. You know, Doc, there's been this thing going around on Twitter, and I'm going to share screen and show it to you.
Who was it that kept pronouncing it the Twitter? It was in a movie or something. The Twitter.
Well, this question has been going around on Twitter, where they showed a picture of John Brown.
Brown.
Yes, and the question, you know, do you know this man? Do you hold him in respect or disgust? And so people started to.
For me, he's one of the 5 individuals that I would like to sit down in the afterlife. I would like to say in heaven, okay, I would like to have dinner with John Brown. So I can ask him some questions. What was you thinking? But go ahead.
Definitely. I would not even call John Brown a cracker. And as I was reading the thread and you know, most of the black people who chimed in knew who he was. But so many white people who chimed in had no idea who he was, what did he do. They was like, well, who is he? Was he some people was like, is he Lincoln? Is that old Abe? You know, and I'm like, wow, as I'm going down written, I should have took snapshots of it so that I could show it. But, you know, they don't know who John Brown was. Now, you had some who were teachers who chimed in, yeah, that's John Brown, da, 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 you know, but we're not allowed to teach him in school, but that's who he is. You know, and a lot of them, you know, some whites, you know, yeah, he's a good guy and, you know, da, 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 da. But as we were dealing with John Brown, was he a real threat to America if he had lived?
Was he a threat to America if he had lived?
Yes.
I mean, John Brown accomplished his goal. John Brown wanted to move abolitionism away from where William Lloyd Garrison and Douglas had it, which is basically
Mhm.
talking, okay, giving speeches. Brown is like, you will never be able to create a persuasive enough argument to cause these people to give away their cash cow. They will never let these people go. And we got to remember that when John Brown planned to raid Harper's Ferry, guess who he has to come with him?
Who's that?
Douglas.
Dirty Douglas?
Douglas he said, "You a madman." He said, "You are going into a perfect steel trap. You go into Harper's Ferry, there's no way that you're going to get out." Okay, so Douglas refused to go. But John Brown, he accomplished his goal. You know, he put Lincoln in such a dilemma because you got to remember many people are unduly swayed by Lincoln and Lincoln's memory, and they're saying quite simply that Lincoln was the great emancipator, and that's not true. Lincoln says, "You ask me what I wish to do about slavery, and I shall answer 100 times out of 100, nothing." Lincoln's number one goal, 1 through 10 million, was preserving the Union. And he's trying to figure out a way to do it. And then here comes John Brown's ignorant ass. Goes up in Harper's Ferry, okay, which is a federal munitions plant. So if Lincoln doesn't go in there and get Brown out, it's definitive proof to the South that Lincoln is anti-slavery.
Mm.
So he had to go get him. So I believe that that John Brown he's the needle that pricked the balloon that blew up caused the U.S. Civil War. You have to really people have to remember that John Brown was a preacher, okay,
Mm.
and Brown is up at a religious commune in upstate New York when his sons contacted him and said, because once again, Lincoln does not want to offend anybody. He's very much like Barack Hussein Obama. He's a nice guy, okay? Unlike the gangbanger that we had with George W. Bush, okay, who just did what he wanted to do. But Lincoln doesn't want to decide if Kansas or Nebraska will be a free or slave state. He says, let the voters decide. And so you have white slave owners' sons who are like, we could get this land and we would have plantations and grow even more wealth, who are flooding there. And you have these dastardly Christians who are wagon training to these states, and they're going to vote the opposite way. Well, these Christians believe in by and large, they believe in praying for you. And so they're out there battling. Really, it ain't even a battle. They're getting slaughtered
Mm.
by the sons of these slaveholders because they want this to be a slave state. And John Brown's sons contact him and say, "Listen, we need you in Kansas. And when you come, bring your guns."
Mm.
And there's this great story. Is my favorite John Brown story, where John Brown has made it out to Kansas and he rendezvous with his sons. And you got to remember, some of his sons died at Harper's Ferry. Okay. Well, John Brown basically said, where they at? Because they got a band of brothers who are just
Mm.
in regards to how they're treating Christians. They're literally slaughtering them. And they said they took him to a cabin. They said they're right in there. And John Brown, with his big bad self, went up there and knocked on the door. And he said, "Listen, come on out, because you do not want me to come in,
Mm.
because there are women and children in there. Be men and come on out here and express yourself."
Mm.
They come out. John Brown and his men, they kill these men. They slaughter them. And this is I don't know if it's I've seen it in movies and what have you, that evil can regenerate itself. So John Brown has his men decapitate these men and separate their arms, their legs, their feet from their bodies and throws them in a river.
Mm,
Message sent. And that's the beauty of having a John Brown type person that you can call on, because the slaughtering of Christians would not have stopped until John Brown got there. Okay. And that's why I try and warn black folk. I'm like, look here, quit trying to, distance yourself from the brothers who are the hitters in the community. Bring them in, welcome them in, try to get them straight, because they could be of some utility and some use to you at a very crucial moment. Those that don't care about killing. But yeah, that's my man John Brown right there. I remember they had the original copy of the Emancipation Proclamation down at a museum in Houston. I went down there, and there was this great argument between these two white men about who was that guy that was up on the awning. They had like a banner that ran all the way around, and it was John Brown. And one guy was adamant. He said, "That's not John Brown. I'm telling you, that's not." At the time, I said, "Sir, that's John Brown." He looked at me kind of like, "Who are you? How do you know?" He almost called me an ugly name, I know. But yeah, that's my man right there. That's one of the five. I hope we would be in heaven having dinner. I don't want to have to interview him in hell.
I know that's right. Let me ask you about one of his quotes, and this is said to be a quote that he made on his way to, I think he was hung.
To the gallows.
Yeah.
You got to remember, they tried John Brown. He was still on a stretcher. He was on a gurney. They brought him into court every single day. He was laid there bleeding, all broke up. Yeah.
Well, he says, "I'm quite certain that the crimes of this guilty land will never be purged away, but with blood. I had, as I now think, vainly flattered myself that without very much bloodshed, it might be done." I'm getting that he's saying it's going to be much bloodshed.
Yeah.
He thought that, just a little bloodshed and it'll be squared away.
No. You're talking about, and this is, this is the worth of the historical record, especially the American historical record. Although it's unfashionable to say, there's no lengths that the white man would go to have his way. And that's probably the most important lesson that those who are going to oppose him are going to have. It's kind of like having two boxers who are superior athletes and great at what they do, and are willing to be carried out there out of that ring dead. So it's gonna be bloody when you're talking about the northern white man fighting the southern white man. And you have to remember that oftentimes these men who are fighting, the elite, they never fight wars, especially hand-to-hand wars. They'll send somebody else to fight in their place. So, but many of the people who are fighting, they're fighting not for the issue of slavery or against slavery. They're actually fighting to represent their home state, where they're from. It's one of the peculiar things throughout history that poor people do and working class people do. It's what Ice Cube was talking about in My Summer Vacation, when he talks about taking a flight to St. Louis to sell crack. And he says the brothers there are dying for a street that they never heard of. You know,
Mm.
people will represent a street, they'll represent a cause. Okay. Yeah, but you know, the northern white man against the southern white man, that's scary. How much blood is going to be shed because they're not going to stop.
Mm. 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 Wow. And is it true that um, no state wanted to accept, or one of the states that they was trying to send his body to would not accept his body?
I don't know. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
Mm.
You know,
Mm. Mm.
I don't doubt that at all. You know, you
Mm.
got to remember that Brown is the tip top of the game when you're talking about radicalism. That man
Mm.
is a radical right there. And you look up radicalism, they need to have John Brown's picture next to it because he was willing to do whatever. And
Mm.
he's not just talking about it, he's actually doing it. And that's an unsettling thing for a lot of people. That here you have somebody who, for all intents and purposes, is never going to spit the bit. He's going to go until he's dead, and that's what he did.
Mm. Do you think if he had not raided Harper's Ferry um, and did something else, I don't know what else, but would have done something else, do you think he would have continued with his killing, or
Oh yeah,
would they'd have gotten rid of him before that?
no, he was killed till he had caught. It's just what it
Mm.
is. He went into Harper's Ferry for the purpose of stealing the U.S. military's guns because he was going to. His plan was to. It's not a well thought out plan. That's what I would like to ask him. If we could ever have dinner in heaven, he wanted to take those guns and put them in the arms in the hands of enslaved Africans and tell them to free themselves. That was his plan. That's why he went to Harper's Ferry. But he forgot to tell them the meeting there. So it didn't really work out. He got stuck up in there. He couldn't get out. And then I want to say it was it Robert E. Lee that Lincoln sent to get him out of there.
Mm.
And when you
I
hear,
think it was somebody big. I do remember that. I
yeah,
don't know if it
I think
was
it was
Robert,
Robert
but
E.
it was
Lee. If it
somebody.
wasn't Lee, it was Sherman. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure it was Robert E. Lee. And when you hear the name Robert E. Lee, you know you need to come on up out of there.
Mhm.
It's a wrap, bro.
Mhm.
They getting ready to Alamo, Harper's Ferry.
Mm. 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 Wow, that is something. What was the next question? I was about to ask you something. Um, mm, It'd have to come back to me. I
No,
want
brother, you know.
I want to go to Mike Tomlin. This video where he's talking to our people.
Your action has got to match your words. It's just that simple. Talking about it ain't gonna make it happen, guys. Dreaming about it ain't gonna make it happen. Laying on your back looking at your ceiling in your bedroom ain't gonna make it happen. Your actions gotta match your words. You wanna be the fastest guy in Norfolk? You better get out the bed running every morning, right? You better do things to make that happen. You wanna be the strongest guy in Newport News? You better be in that new weight room I just dropped off over there for y'all. Y'all better use that thing too. You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying is this. I hear words so often. I hear words from y'all. I laugh because it don't mean nothing. How many of y'all roll by me today? Man, I'm going to play for you one day. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Keep it moving, young fella. Don't talk me to death. When you show up at training camp, hit me on the ass and say, hey, coach, I told you 5 years ago, man, I was going to be here. Good to see you, man. Let's go to work. That's my mentality. Don't talk me to death. This game ain't for all of y'all. Some of y'all just wear it play because of the jersey you got on your back. This is a violent game. This is an emotional game. That's okay. If you love it, you might be the right man for the JOB. As players in the National Football League, as former players in the National Football League, guess what? For every one of them, and they'll tell you when they come up here, is 8 to 10 guys that played ball with them in high school, that went to school for free because they went to school on football scholarship, and they fell into my category. They weren't good enough. And they pharmaceutical salespeople, and they teachers, and they professionals, and so forth. And they live and work right around this area right now. Legendary dudes to us, y'all don't even remember their name. That ain't the point. The point is this: life is good for them. They're being very productive. The skills that they use in regards to the game of football, they carried it on to the other aspects of their life, man, and it's taken them to great places. That's what this game will give to you. My mom is always worried about my disappointment because she know how I go after stuff. So she tried to lessen the blow or shorten the fall for me by trying to talk me out of stuff. I've been telling my mother, man, for the last 15 years I was going to be a head coach in the NFL, and she laughed. She did. That's my mama. Don't nobody love me like my mama, but she ain't want me to be disappointed. You know what I mean? So she tried to talk me out of it. I ain't hearing it. You understand? Whatever that you have in your mind that you're going to do, don't let nobody take you off your game. There might be somebody that's very close to you, your biggest supporter, and they might not support a dream or aspiration that you have. And it might not be for negative reasons. It might just, they might love you so much, they don't want you to be disappointed. You can't listen to them. All we trying to do is do what was done for us. Pass it on to you. You take the lessons that you learn here, be the very best as you can be, whether it's in football or any other walk of life, and then you in turn pass it on to the next young cat. That's what this game provides you. It might be the next coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers sitting out here in this audience. I sat out there in that audience not that long ago. When you decide to do something, you do it. For every person that encourages you, there's going to be 100 that don't. Don't listen to the people that don't, and you really don't have to listen to the people that do. Because if you really made the decision, you don't need encouragement from nobody else, do you? The longer I'm in this game and doing what I do, the less I'm willing to want to talk people into loving it like I love it. You know what I'm saying, man? I get very little patience now for trying to talk people into loving this thing. What I've come to realize now that I have my own children and I've been doing this for a long time, I don't care whether or not my boys play ball, truly. You gotta love this game to be involved in this game. It ain't for everybody. But if you do love it, those are guys I want to talk to today. Because if you love this game, the lessons that this game will teach you, the sacrifices you make, the way you discipline yourselves to put everything you got into this game, you can use those tools to be extremely successful in life regardless of what it is you do. We ain't about a bunch of talk in the National Football League, are we, guys? You talk for only so long, then somebody kick the ball off, and then talking stops. For real. This game ain't for everybody, man. It's emotional, it's violent, it's a beautiful thing, if that's your thing. If it's not, take your energies and your passions and heart to something else. But remember those lessons, man. When you decide nobody gets you off, make sure that you're taking the daily steps to make your dreams a reality. Because again, every dude that you ever aspire to be like or meet or think is doing great things come from Wakefield, come from Hampton, come from Denby. They come from somewhere. They ain't dropping out of spaceships, bro. They regular dudes. Me, head coach Pittsburgh Steelers, having a heck of a time. But nah, I'm from Denby. I'm a Newport News boy. That's who I am. That's who I am.
Okay, so that was Mike Tomlin, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he was giving a talk to the youth there. There were some things that Mike said, Doc, that I wanted to ask you about. First, before I go into that, what's your overall opinion of his little talk?
You know, I'm gonna put to the side my pervasive hatred of everything Pittsburgh Steeler and Philadelphia Eagle and try to be the bigger person. Washington Redskins as well. I am a Dallas Cowboy fan whose fandom has been put on pause. To the good Lord fulfills that I had two qualifications for me to activate my fandom again. One was Tony Romo can't be the quarterback no more, and the other one was Jera has got to be off the face of the planet Earth. And I'll start rooting again. You know, it's good, solid, standard advice. And I love the way that he made it applicable to every endeavor, everything that you're going to do. You know, the path to and the things that make you successful in one industry are always transferable to other areas, to other industries, to other endeavors. So it's solid there, you know. And for me, one of the things that I've seen so many of my peers when I was coming up through school, they were the best in our little town. And we thought that, okay, he's going to be the one to make it. And not a single one of them made it. No, you know what? I take it back. One did make it. And he was arguably the least likely individual to make it to the NFL. Hugh Douglas. Hugh Douglas is from my hometown. Hugh Douglas, me and Hugh's brother, Steve Taylor, were very close. And I remember Hugh, because he was a couple years younger than us. And I remember mushing Hugh in the head and things like that. Yeah. And for him to have made it, you know, super proud that brother was able to reach those dreams. But by and large, you know, I think that we need to support our children in whatever it is that whatever God has written into their heart. But we need to really develop those skills of being on time, of due diligence, of being disciplined, and what have you. And, you know, support them. And really, one of the principal lessons that I've learned is you have to understand the difference between goals and dreams. And you also need to have someone who explains to you that the role that you play, especially in the employment sector, is not necessarily who you are. It's oftentimes not where your love is at. It's how you pay your bills. It's how you take care of your family and what have you. Now, what you do away from that may be what it is that you love. However, you need to be able to figure out a way to get that thing that you love to be so beneficial to your life that is profitable to you. Juwansa Kanjufu, great educator out of Chicago, who really in every way changed my life with one piece of advice. Juwansa Kanjufu was known to say this: do what you love, but do it so well that others will pay you to do it for them. Yeah. So despite him being associated with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'll tip my hat to that.
Most definitely. Coach T he is the one and only. But he talked about football being a violent and emotional sport. We could say the same thing about living in America, just being Black in America, that it is violent and it is emotional. Tying it back into the story that we started off with, what has to be taught, and you know, one of my favorite pictures that I love with you, you and your son, is I think you're on a balcony or whatever, and you know, I think you're like out, maybe out in the woods or something, but you're down on one knee and he has the hat on his head and you're talking to him. You know, like to me, I think like you're giving him some grand instructions, you know.
Yeah,
how to go out there and conquer.
I was. It was. We were in Ghana. We were
Mm,
at the Cocoon National Park, close to the
okay.
Cape Coast Castle. And yeah, you're correct. It's a high up and I'm talking about 100 feet, 200 feet up in the air, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
walking thing, right? And it sways, and there's only enough. It's literally a 2x4 board that you're walking on, and there's maybe 12 sections of it,
Mm,
son, and there is no real way to turn back around because
mm-hmm.
people are coming behind you. He decides at after the sixth one that he wanted to turn around and go back. And that's what I'm talking to him about. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, James, if you go back, number one, it's going to be difficult because there are people still coming, and we're over halfway completed. So you would have a shorter time finishing the course than backtracking and going back. And it took some coaxing to get him, because it really is it's something. And it really, I've done the course several times, and being home, being in Africa, there's nothing that really impresses me as much as the physical fitness of Africans. There were
Mm-hmm.
many of us who could not even make it to the course because you have to go up these stairs, and it literally looks as if you're walking to heaven, because there is no discernible way where where you can see where it's going to stop and what have you. Yeah, yeah, that was the moment where I'm like, bruh, if you turn around, it's gonna be longer. Yeah, that's the moment. We were at the Cocoon National Park,
Mm,
I believe that's what it's called. Yeah, yeah,
wow.
that was a great moment. He went, and he completed
Mm-hmm.
it. Yeah.
Mm, wow. Yeah, that picture, I've always just loved that picture. Really do. It just when I first saw it, it just spoke volumes to me, you know, and that's what I thought it was. You know, you're coaching him, you're giving him, you know, what he needs to do to keep it going.
Yeah.
Um, and this is one of the reasons I'm so anticipating your book, Father to Son. Um, because there's not enough um, good men
Mm,
out here that's present and giving good guidance.
mm,
And so there's a hunger for good guidance. You know, you'll find that many may not want to come forward and say it because they don't want to appear weak or less than.
mhm,
But when you catch them by themselves and you talk to them and you give it, then they're like, yeah, bro, I'm appreciating that you telling me this, but I just didn't want to seem weak to say, you know, I need help. You know,
mhm,
I need this guidance. And going back to what Mike T was saying, you know, that it is emotional and it is violent. Just living in America, you know, day to day, trying our best to make this day better than our yesterday was.
mhm.
What is the proper way or the proper advice to give our young men, knowing that that opposition that that sister ran into, you may run into. That opposition that that state senator ran into, you may run into. And how you got to get over it. You got to get through it. You can't let that stunt your growth.
You know, I think there's so much that you can say about that. One of the things that I guess I'll say a couple of things. One of them, once again, is coming from Brother Malcolm, where he talks about the violence and the uncertainty, white violence and the uncertainty of Black life. And Malcolm says, your life is the best thing you got going for you. And if you're gonna give it up even Steven. Okay. We need to, at every turn, impress upon our children that you're going somewhere important. And you gotta walk like you're going somewhere important. There isn't room for lollygagging. There isn't, and we have to, as a community, and this is truthfully one of the things that I struggle with. And it's like talking with Brother William Foster that I mentioned earlier, who said that being a writer, being a Black writer, is the loneliest occupation in the world because writers spend so much time alone. And our social networks are other writers who are busy writing themselves and, and activists and things like that. But Black men, by and large, we need to find a way to love ourselves, to take care of ourselves, and to, in many ways, embrace and support each other. I was at Walmart with my son, helping him get his car squared away. And I'm explaining to him the different things that we need to get done to this car. And, we're going through it. And I told him, I said, listen, I said, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And I'm like, and it's on you. Okay. I've given you the money, but now you got to go ahead. And I'm like, as a young man, you can walk in there and you can tell those people what it is that you need, what you desire, this and that. There has to be a willingness to engage.
Mm-hmm.
And he was working at Walmart at the time. And so he goes back in to go to work. I'm exiting out we were over by the automotive department. And so I exit, I'm heading to my car. And this brother, I thought he was trying to hit me with his car. Okay. Because he backs up real fast and, and I'm looking, it kind of startled me. And he said, man, that was all right. He said, I sat there and I listened to you talk to your son, and you reminded me of what I would say to my son. And I think that there's a lot of that that goes on. I believe, I have to believe that the narrative that there are very few good fathers out there is false, because we love our children. I just think that what ends up happening is, for some of us, we don't have the skills to express what it is that we want to say to our children. We don't know how to say it slickly, like a Michael Rick Dyson, or so deeply like a T.D. Jakes. But we love each other. We love our children. We want to protect our children. I just think that there needs to be a kind of a coming together of Black men with no pretenses, no nothing, to just absolutely be in each other's presence. And I think that is a major step forward for Black men. And if Black men are taking a major step forward, it's a major step forward for Black America, for our children, for our future, because the information is out there. And one of the things that I fight against often is brothers who seemingly think that, oh, well, you know everything, you got your thing together, blah, blah, and I don't. Those of us who somewhat have our stuff together in whatever area of our life, there's nothing more that we want than to be able to mentor or even talk with other folk to teach them what it is that we know. And this, once again, my mind is kind of working in regards to, because I realize that nothing I say is my original thought. What just popped in my head was Brand Nubian. You know, they did a recording on definition of the 5%er, and they utilized of the 5%, and they utilized Minister Farrakhan's speech, where he says quite simply that your duty is to teach what you know to those who do not know, and I think that that is us at our best. But I think it's a two-way street of
Mhm.
humility and understanding. Like I have my mechanic, I have a personal mechanic right now. One of my former students who actually became a teacher, Jawan Askew, who could only do it for 5 years. Now he's adamant about me staying in the classroom, but he said, "Man, I can't do it no more, Doc, with the kids. We need you in there." Okay, but Jawana talked to me about history and things like that. And while he's fixing my car,
Mhm.
now that's his lane. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not jealous of his lane. I recognize that that's his thing. That's his calling. That's what, he went to BMW school to learn how to work on BMWs and what have you. Not that I have a
Mhm.
BMW. I got a Dodge Charger. Um, but we have to support each other and operate from a position of willingly working with each other.
Right.
And what makes that difficult from my perspective is quite simply the reality that even Black men are inundated with negative images about Black men, about Black women, about the chances of Black success. And we have to support each other. And as Kevin Samuels talked about, Black women not even wanting to smile. Brothers have this standoffish thing that they do, this mean mugging thing that they've been doing since the
Mhm.
70s, that needs to cease, because truthfully, we all got, and we got a lot.
Mhm. Definitely, definitely. All right, we are at our time. Doc, you want to go ahead and give some closing comments?
And, just happy to be here, man. Just feeling good, feeling energized, and what have you. Ask people to visit the site, although I've been dormant in writing for a little bit, but that's getting ready to change. Manhoodraceculture.com, YouTube channel by the same name, and let's get it. Let's get it. Let's truly bring fruition to the idea that we are the most crucial variable in our success or failure. And
Mhm.
I just truly believe that in the end we win.
Exactly. Oh, man, we are going to get some hate mail because when we missed last week, not last week, but the week before that, I had got mail that messages. Where y'all at? Where
Whoa,
y'all
whoa,
at?
whoa, 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 whoa. See, this is a critical moment for those who were disappointed. Okay. The brother is trying to generously spread 50-50 the reason that we were not here. That is erroneous. That is a flawed presentation. It was his fault that we were not here. Okay, I was here waiting, and he said, "Nah, I ain't gonna, And then we were supposed to do it on the weekend, and the brother didn't call me. So pray for the brother. Pray for the brother to be able to get his priorities together. Because yeah, I apologize as much as I can apologize as a man who had nothing to do with the dropping of the ball there. So send all that hate. I ain't like Pusha T. I don't want all the hate. Send it to where it belongs. That brother right there.
Oh boy, we're gonna get some more messages because I just realized we're not live. We're only recording.
Once
I'm
again,
just realizing that.
once again.
Mm,
People,
mm.
You heard it. You heard him say it. The host. He's in charge of all of that. He's the tech side. Okay, I'm just the talent that shows up. I'm like Michael Jackson. Okay, you turn the spotlight on, and I'll start talking. All that other voodoo that they do, I don't know. So I don't know what the brother gonna do, because we don't talk about the tech stuff. That's
Man, oh man, I tell you, and I told them too. I was like, that's gonna be the last time. We ain't gonna miss. We're gonna be on point. Da, da, da. And I forgot to do the darn
a black lie. that ain't no little white lie. That was a major black lie. You done lied to the people. You rolled in their faith in us. Because there's some of them I'm saying right now. See right there. That's why they can't handle nothing. Where they at? Yeah, and a reminder, we supposed to meet on Friday, remember?
Exactly. I got that written down. That we meeting on Friday. Man.
Yes.
Well, family, I'm sorry, because
you know what I'm saying?
What
What can you expect from the Eagles fans? Cowboys fan is a good old country boy who's ready and dirty, honest.
Yeah, so I apologize about that, family. So just already know, when you see the video uploaded and is out there, I apologize. I forgot. It didn't even dawn on me till because normally around this time I'm going to there to see how many we got on and say thank you for joining and watching, and totally like, oh my God, I didn't even go live.
Got nothing. Let the people down. Let the people down. You have one job. Couldn't get that job done.
Oh boy. It's gonna get better. It's gonna get better.
Got to.
Wow. Oh boy. All right, family. Well, as we always say, you kill a nigga in you, and I'm gonna kill a nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black First. Today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.
Peace.
So you better get the message and get it straight.
You're gonna need some bridge work. It's simple as that.
Because we're living in judgment. We're living in implementation.